Hello, this is Lisa LaRose here on Connect to Love on PRN-FM, and I am joined by the amazing and wonderful Michael J. Russ. Welcome, Michael. I am so excited to have you join me today because you and I we just are kindred spirits, and it seems that we are always looking at things in a different way. So I've been wondering, you know me, I'm the woman of wonder. So I've been wondering today about weeds, and in particular, dandelions. And dandelions, as we know, they're the small yellow flowers that grow in people's lawns. And when they are done with their blooms, they transform into this beautiful little wispiness that people can pick and blow on and make a wish. And it's all in how you perceive things. So what part of what got me wondering about dandelions is because I've been seeing a lot of postings on dandelions and how really they were considered the plant that was the elixir of life. They help to purify the residues and the negative energies in the body and purify the blood. And dandelions come out in the spring. They're one of the first flowers that the bees can actually feed from and gain nutrients from. And not only that, every part of the dandelion is edible. Up until the 1800s, dandelions were actually seen as extremely beneficial. People would remove grass to plant dandelions. They're actually not a weed. They're from the same family as the sunflowers. And so it got me thinking a little bit about how this elixir of life turned out to be a weed, something that we feel that we need to rid ourselves of and that we need to poison our ground and the earth with to get rid of it. And I started to really think about that. And so, of course, Michael, it got me wondering, where on earth did the perception of dandelions change? Perception is really a choice, and it made me think about the quote by quantum physicist Max Planck, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so I wanted to explore that, and this is sort of the way my brain works, and I just, I'd love to see what your thoughts are, Michael. How is it that we get these perceptions that are handed to us, and something that can become so beneficial becomes seen in such a different light?
Best answer to that question that I have is that they picked it up from someone somewhere. Either they, read it, somebody they respected gave an idea of perceptions are things that we develop over time based on our own experiences. And you get 5 people together, and they all go to the same event, and they're not all going to have the same perception of that event because they're all interpreting it through their own filter of perception based on their past experiences. And so if they all go to a ball game, well, if 4 haven't ever been to a ball game before and one has, their experience of the ball game is going to be vastly different than the other 4. And that's kind of the way, I guess, life works. I love the concept of perceptions because if you pay attention to them, you can really start to curate the reality that you're looking to have in any given moment. And you can more easily pivot from bad to good, negative to positive, and that they're that powerful. And I love your quote here, and it's just one that I was sitting there reading it, and when you start to look at this, when you change, hang on a second here, when you change. I just took a screenshot of it, so here we go. Okay. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's a really powerful statement. It really, really is. And to me, it's very simple. that you are the one in control of your own reality based on the way you're perceiving your reality, the way you're interpreting your outside world. And I'm a big fan of making sure that I curate the reality for myself that I'm looking for that day. Things will happen. However, it's how I perceive those things that happen that determines how I feel about them. It's the most important thing. We all want to feel joy. We want to feel happiness. We want to feel love in our lives. And we can only do that when we understand that it's our response to our outer world, how we perceive our outer world, and then thereby respond to it based on those perceptions, that determines how we feel. And I can go around and around with this and come up with, I've come up with 20 different elements for personal alchemy, and perception is always number one on the list. Because if you don't like someone, and that's your perception, that you don't like them, nothing about them is going to be palatable for you, and you decide to shift that perception to, they're just okay, they're all right, you're going to have a completely different feeling about them as a result of that shift in perception. And now you may be more open to learning a different side of them. Because what we do is we have a tendency to judge people, right? We judge people based on one thing, based on some sort of experience that we've had in the past. They either did something or didn't do something. That we did something we didn't like, didn't do something that they thought they should do. And it's the most amazing thing how you can, if you're willing to change the way you see someone, the perception you have about someone, how differently, almost immediately, you'll feel about them. The connection is inescapable. When I'm playing golf, and I love, I like to use golf analogies. You're out there for 4 hours, and it's you against the course. That's really what it is. It's not other people. You're not playing against other people technically. The score may have be part of it. However, if you embrace yourself and you a positive perception of yourself throughout the entire round, you'll play better than if you don't, because your physicality is impacted by the perceptions you have about yourself. If you don't think you can do something, if you think you didn't do it well, you're not going to do it well the entire day, then it's not going to go well. And we have this really powerful thing called perceptions that I don't find a lot of people pay attention to. Do you?
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, they don't pay attention to them. It's the most amazing thing to me that I can turn around and say to someone, you made a judgment about that thing based on a perception that you have about them. You will feel different, and you don't feel that great doing it. You could feel differently if you just simply elevated that thought to a different place. If you shift that perception about them, set your existing judgment based on that negative perception aside. And this is how we misjudge people. We judge them based on one thing, and then we see a completely different side of them. They might have said something on social media, and all of a sudden you find out that, let's put it this way. Prince, rest in peace, what a great musician, writer, in person he was, did a lot of quiet, he practiced altruism, whereby he did things that were really good for other people, and he didn't want any credit for it. He didn't want anybody to know he did.
Who is that?
Prince.
Oh, Prince. Oh, yes. No, absolutely.
Yeah, Prince.
Yeah.
Big into altruism. Big into altruism.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't want his name on a building.
So.
Didn't want his name in the news. He was responsible for, in large part, paying for a solar project in Oakland for a poorer community, so that they could have some sort of of course you don't know about it. I heard about it through another source. Interestingly enough, anybody who had, I hate his music, I can't stand that stuff, I like Prince. When you start to see the full facet of someone, the many sides of them, we tend to judge people based on one thing, and we're very directed in that way. However, when we start to dig deeper, we find out other things, and those other things we discover shift our perception. Thereby, we understand that knowledge or enlightenment is one of the things that has the ability, the power to shift perceptions when we find out more information, right? So I encourage people who have negative perceptions to dig deeper and find out a little bit more about what happens and what's going on, because there's always a story behind the story. And we live in a society that is different.
Yeah. When you talk about that, Michael, the quote, "When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change," was sort of made famous by Wayne Dyer in his series, The Power of Intention. And when I actually had an opportunity to meet Wayne, he came up to an area called Lilydale, New York, and spoke, and I got to be his concierge and take him around. And he was just as lovely on air as he was in person. And there were so many things. He took the time to notice simple things about people. And one of the things that I really loved about him, he said, he often pondered what it was he came into this world to learn. And he said that he decided that it was self-reliance. And when he was young, his mother was in an abusive situation, and she had to put her children in an orphanage. And he said, you know what? That was one of the best ways that I could learn self-reliance. And ultimately, his mother was able to regather her resources and bring the family back together. But it shaped him. And so sometimes it's our perception of things. He wasn't in that space where, poor me, I was in an orphanage and, I had all these obstacles. He took those challenges and transformed it, and really, I think, was one of he impacted my life. I know he's impacted a lot of other people's lives through his teachings and his writings. And when he talked about, and when he talked about perception, it was like throughout history, who is it that we decided that we were going to hate? Well, we're going to hate this person, and we're going to hate that person. But now I think on the planet, and you and I were speaking about this, I would challenge everybody, instead of to choose that languaging, to look to see who you can love. And who you can love, and how many things about them. And yesterday I had this young man that waited on me, and I'll tell you, he just lit up a room. He was standing behind the counter, and I we walk in to order something. It was at one of the healthier fast food places where I could get a salad. And I was sort of looking at the food, and then I looked up and I saw his bright eyes and his beautiful smile, and I was like, wow, just his whole presence. And it just, I just said to him, I said, you've just got an amazing presence about you. And then we chatted for a little bit, and I said something to him about, like, why are you in school? I said, you could actually be a model or an actor. I said, because you have that about you. And he said, well, a lot of people say that. He said, but I'm in school. I said, what are you studying? And he said, math and computer science. And I said, and you're smart too. I said, you'll go far in this world. But it's sometimes it's just noticing those little things. And I'm starting to see, and I'm feeling it. I don't know if you're actually palpable feeling it, but I don't know. Maybe it's because it's spring. Maybe it's because just new beginnings. But there seems to be a different feeling in the air, that there is more of a coming together. People are happier, at least up here in the Northeast. It's what I've been noticing. I don't know if
I agree with you.
Have seen anything.
I agree with you. Yeah, a lot of it has to do with how we perceive winter. And how we perceive weather. You've got a choice when you get snowed in. You have a choice about how you manage it, how do you deal with it, how you respond to it. And it starts with developing a positive perception of a snowstorm. because there have been so many. I mean, let's face it. The news makes snowstorms out to be the evil other, right? They demonize storms, and they only tell you the bad stuff that happened. They don't tell you about the story of when the snowstorm happened and this man was out just walking, and they went out to bring him in. This couple looked out their window and they saw this man hobbling in the snow, brought him in, and discovered that he was homeless. And they literally fed this man, washed his clothes, helped him clean up, and stuff like that for, I think it was like 5 days.
Oh, and that's beautiful.
He was a totally different person at every point, because he had you get to a certain point if you're homeless where people are just basically talking down about you, talking down at you, and what love and compassion and joy are empathy are the things that disappear first, unfortunately, in our society when people are maybe perhaps down on their luck. And it's interesting, but there's a lot of stories like that, where people's lives have been saved as a result of it. And these are people making decisions in situations where they haven't necessarily, the world will call them harsh, right? The storm is just a storm, and it's what we make it. And anything is like that happens in our lives. And we have to remember that we have a choice as to how we can interpret anything. And I love when you're talking about people who have the wherewithal, they have this power within them, and when you choose to exercise that power that's associated with your own sovereignty, the ability to decide what you think and what goes in your body, what you think about yourself, and your connection with spirit, everything can change. It's massive. It's massive. It's somebody who has a problem. What can happen now? The winter was very harsh this year in many ways in terms of the amount of snow that fell. However, it's just a winter. We get lots of rain down here. One summer we had 64 inches of rain in 2 months.
Oh my goodness!
It just rained relentlessly. And if you pay attention to the outer sources that tell you this is all bad, this is terrible, this is the worst ever, they give you all the historical, this has never happened before. All those things can help shape your perspective, the way you're perceiving your own environment, your own situation. But you can buck that. You can. Right. There were a lot of people during COVID, during the lockdown, who did good things. I just saw a woman today on television who said, "I had a great time. I lost 160 pounds."
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic!
I made it.
Good for her.
How many times have you heard? Have you seen people who said, "Oh, I just gained weight. I just ate and ate and ate." I was in a miserable situation, and I'm going, man, it was like a perfect opportunity to maybe delve into something that you've always wanted to delve into. Read a few books that you've always wanted to read. You never had the time, or you decided that I could just work out. It's amazing what you could do if you start perceiving something in a positive way, especially for you. It's what you make it. Life is what you make it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You can't always, change the situation, but when you change your perception of it, that's exactly when you take back your personal power. As you said, your sovereignty. You can either, be controlled or you can control the situation. I don't know if you've ever read the book or you've seen the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton, who was a stem cell researcher. I think he was at Stanford, and what was so interesting about his work and what I really loved about the biology of belief was that in his research he started doing these stem cells. It was the very early days, and so he would take, say, perhaps a liver cell, and he would divide it, and he would put them in all these different petri dishes. But what was interesting is the cells would divide if the person believed that it was a lung cell rather than a liver cell. That cell, then it divided, would become a lung cell. or it would become, a kidney cell or whatever other cell that it was chose to be. It was so interesting. And back at the time, and it was like, I think around like 1987, he was sort of ridiculed for what he was doing. And he just held steadfast and kept through. I mean, he really was one of the breakthrough scientists, not only in cellular biology, but also in quantum physics. And he sort of, started looking at it, and he said, well, the cell is sort of like a computer chip, that it's the equivalent of a computer chip in the brain. And so you think about when you program your phone or you download these apps, the moment you change your perception is the moment you rewrite the chemistry in your body, is what he said. So, I think it's so true. I mean, you can not only just use it for the physical things, but, and then when, he started to take the biology of belief in actually, if you've not ever seen any of his lectures, I would encourage you or any of our audience members to please check them out on YouTube, because it's phenomenal that you realize that your genes are not your destiny, that you can actually shift, turn them, your genes on and off like a light switch based on your perception. Are you familiar with his work at all, Michael?
No, an offshoot of it. I've heard of him. I haven't read his work, delved into it as you have. However, as you were talking there, I was thinking about Masaru Emoto and Beta Austin, and how
Sure.
they're doing the same thing with water right now, and how, and I believe this is the same thing that, although put differently, that Deepak Chopra has been alluding to or speaking about in the past 20 years, is that we have this ability, this innate ability to, I think the easiest way to put it is your genes are not your destiny. You have the ability to change the molecular structure of your body based on your thoughts, what your thinking, your perceptions, and it's a fascinating concept to me. I don't know if you're familiar. However, there's a gentleman called the Iceman.
I love him.
You know him,
Wim
huh?
Hof. Yes. Wim Hof. Yeah, actually, Glenn was a big fan of Wim Hof, and I have a very good friend who is much more devoted than I am, and he goes out in the winter in his bare feet and stands out in the cold. I can't do that, but yeah. But please continue,
okay, there
Michael.
you go. You just said I can't do that, right?
I know. I'm sorry. I could. Yes, I could.
However, it's not so simple, not as simple as I can't, I can. And this is likely the thing. The Iceman climbed Mount Everest in shorts and a T-shirt.
I know, that's fantastic.
And that's not something you can say I can't, I can. It's not easy. It's not as easy to flip flop from can to can and actually do that. This man has developed a relationship with his mind unlike anyone else. That's really what's happened. And he understands on a molecular level how to control and manage his body. And that has taken practice. It has taken deep conviction, and the process that most people don't have the time or interest in going into. The depth of,
right.
Let's put it that way. And that's, so it's not some things you can do. I can. Okay. It's true. When you say to yourself, I can't shovel that driveway, it's too deep. And then you decide to get dressed up, warm, and you go out, and now you prove yourself wrong. Right.
Right.
That's a little bit of a different feat than climbing Mount Everest in shorts and a T-shirt, or sitting outside doing something that would cause frostbite in 5 minutes, or hypothermia in 5 minutes for some people, and he's out there an hour or two, or the whole day, right?
Right.
And
I will say, I have done his breathing techniques. His breathing techniques are fantastic. They really do help you, give you more energy, and they help, reveal different things. And I have done the cold therapy in the shower, but quite honestly, winter in being out in the cold in my bare feet is something that I will have to work up to, Michael.
I can say this: I can deal with the cold. When I'm in it, I can adapt to it and do everything I need to do in it. And I think it's important for us to, we're talking about the power of perceptions and how
sure.
they basically help us create our reality. And I think it's important even to say to yourself to make sure that we're ever cognizant of what we're actually thinking in terms of our own perceptions of things throughout the day. I'm always, cognizant of what I'm thinking in terms of my own perceptions. How am I perceiving this thing I need to do, or this person I'm going to meet, or this call I have to make, or something else? How am I perceiving my walk is going to go today? Something as simple as that. We're engaging in thousands of perceptions a day, and really quick, perceptions and judgments. And
right.
It is, if we slow that roll down a little bit, and we heighten our intentions about our perceptions and what we're perceiving and whether it's positive or negative, and being on the lookout for the negative ones, and then asking ourselves, okay, why do I have that negative perception about this? And it'll go back to something.
Right.
It was interesting when we were talking I was thinking today, because I was listening to Carol Collins, the Yeshua Collective, and there's an example that she talks about the law of attraction. She says people. It was actually her self-healing piece that was just so brilliant, channeling. And you wonder why somebody likes wallpaper in their kitchen, right? They love wallpaper in the kitchen. They want wallpaper in the kitchen. You're going why do you want wallpaper in the kitchen? It's such an odd thing. Because when they were a child, they had wallpaper in the kitchen. It was happy being in the kitchen. They were happy. Their mother or father were cooking with love, and it was a happy place. And there was wallpaper on the wall. And that association later in life is still with them. And so they associate having wallpaper in the kitchen with being happy and being loved and cooking with love. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, I thought that was so beautiful, honestly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's how we're perceiving anything. We there's a reason why we have perceived things positively and negatively, and a lot of it has to do with our experience or wisdom up to this point in our lives. And I like to buck those trends. I like to delve a little deeper.
You do. I think you do. Well, when I was looking at the quote, because I thought to myself, I do remember, Wayne Dyer saying, but I do remember him also attributing it to Max Planck. And so when I'm like, okay, I know that he has this connection. He was the originator of the quantum theory, but what is a little bit more about him? And they actually is a Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences. And one of the studies that I found that they were doing was how the heart affects our perception. And they talked about how the heart and the brain communicate constantly, which we have spoken about and we know. But when we are in a dangerous situation, the heart beats faster, right? We our adrenaline, right. All of these different things. And so the brain, is talking and it's communicating with the heart and making it beat faster. But then when we relax, then it starts to slow down. And it's such an interesting thing, though, because, and I think that's why meditation is so powerful as you become really the conscious of your mind and understand that, okay, yes, this is what I'm experiencing. Yes, the sky looks like it's dark, but am I perceiving a storm, or am I just perceiving something that's going to blow over? It's just something another point to ponder, like dandelions, right?
That is true, and I loved you starting out with that. By the way, as the dandelions it's really interesting. Tuna, ahi used to be a trash fish. Nobody wanted it.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, really. way back in the 50s and 60s, it was a trash fish. Early 70s, nobody wanted to eat tuna. I mean, obviously it was tuna in a can or whatever, but when it comes to restaurants or sushi or whatever, no, tuna is not. Here in this country, sushi wasn't a big thing in the 60s and 70s anyway, but it used to be a trash fish. And there's lots of foods that have gone from obscurity to and disdain to a delicacy. And it's all a function of perception. And even I would venture to say, although the beautiful thing about Bruce Lipton is that, as I wrote down here, he brings empirical evidence to the metaphysical, which is quite, that's brilliant. Bringing them, some people they thrive on empirical evidence. They're not like, oh, whatever, I don't believe that, blah blah blah, even though it's happening. Even though their perception of whatever it is, their perception of a lack of empirical evidence is a perception. It's just everything is a percepation, and
you're 100% right. I'm chuckling because this morning you go through these little snippets. There was, and I don't know who he was because I looked at it for a few minutes and I was like, I don't think so. So this particular scientist was asserting that mankind planted the Amazon rainforest. And I thought, well, now that's an interesting perception.
Okay, okay, all right.
Because of the quantity of Brazil nut trees and the quantity of all of these other things. And I thought, well, long before man existed on the planet, I'm sure that there were lots of, yes, it could be that they carried other plants to certain areas, but I thought to myself, what an unusual perception of the Amazon. I've never heard that before.
Here's an interesting point that I think is making us hearing that is crazy just to hear about it. However, I live in an area that has lots of pine trees. There are 4 or 5 pine trees indigenous to my area, and there's a certain time of the year where you get these little helicopter-looking things, seedlings that fly off the trees, right? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm,
okay,
sure.
Those are the little seedlings. I spent an hour outside in my flower bed picking out the seedlings that had turned into little beginnings of pine trees. They were about 3 to 6 inches tall, right? So I have to go through my flower bed. If I don't want a pine tree there, I got to pull it out. Right? Because that little seedling has blown into the flower bed and it's been nurtured, rained on, fed by something, and it's growing all on its own. So think about the rainforest. I would be asking Brazil nuts, how do those trees propagate? What do they send out? Right? Because, my girlfriend's got 2 ponds on her property and there are bass fish. So if she didn't put any bass fish in there, how did those bass fish get in there, right? So anytime you see fish in a place, it's because birds have been flying over, and what have they been doing? They eat fish, and then they poop in various places, and the seeds come out, eggs come out, they grow, right? Things are spread around. Nature is a wonder of this kind of symbiotic kind of behavior. It's wonderful, and that was my answer to the whole Brazil tree thing. People didn't plant them; it's just a function of how those trees propagate.
I know.
In a forest, Right. It's like, how can you say that? My gosh. Okay, so let's just talk about the fact that if we want to be happy, if we want to be joyful, and if we want to be self-loving, and we want to give ourselves every opportunity to have the most amazing day, right? I want to say, make today amazing. If you're finally going to settle on curating your life experience, your daily experience, what's the most important thing that you can do? What we're talking about. You can delicately curate your perceptions of things, your perception of everything that goes on. And I'll tell you the perception that most people don't ever think about.
Please.
It's not positive. It's not negative. It's neutral. The neutral perception is the most powerful and the most empowering.
I completely agree.
Because it's just something that happens. That's a neutral perception. It's just something that happens. I'm writing a piece on judgment. Yeah, exactly. So you're just accepting that it is what it is. And that's the neutral perception. You're not judging it negative, not judging it positive, not seeing it as one way. You're not letting it drive your feelings in one way or another. You're just simply saying, oh, this is life. That's life. This stuff happens. You know, and you just move on.
I tend to say it is what it is until it isn't. I mean, and that's really, that's all we have, in my opinion. It is what it is until it isn't. And it really is.
You know what the end, what's the isn't? That's the question. What defines isn't?
I don't know.
To you.
I mean, it's in the space of
I'll tell you what my definition of isn't is. I'll tell you what my definition of isn't. When it impacts you personally. That's, for most people, that's when it isn't. It is what it is until it impacts me. Right?
Yeah.
So, we look at climate change that way. It is what it is until, it impacts me, until I get 5 hurricanes in the summer that are Cat 5. Then I might start shift my perception about climate change. Or, 8 snowfalls that are over 10 feet each. What everybody has a definition of what it isn't is. Interesting statement, isn't it? Everybody has that definition. We might not be thinking about it. However, it is what it is. However, here's the cool thing. Even when it impacts you personally, you can still see it as just a thing that happens. That's the beauty of the mind. And that's how you drive yourself to continual joy and happiness and positivity, is to come upon your outside world. Look at your outside world with wonder and not let it impact you to the degree that it shifts your frequencies back to the lower level and keeps them there.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, one of the colleagues of Max Planck was Albert Einstein, and I also put this quote out, was that there are 2 ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. And
absolutely,
it's so interesting that both of them were working, with this quantum field, with this field where things were changing at a molecular level based on an observation. And I think that's what's so powerful about perception. It's, what are you observing? And then if you start seeing things as a miracle, what can you create from that point? Because even though you may have this challenge, where does the blessing come in? Where does the doorway open? What is left for you to discover? What's yet for you to discover? Not even left for you to discover. It's because the possibilities are endless. Yeah,
that's true. That is so cool. I mean, I think that I've come to understand Albert Einstein as a not only a physicist but a metaphysicist.
I believe so too.
In my view, he spent a lot of time thinking. He meditated a lot. He connected to something greater than himself. And from that intuited a lot of really, mind-bending, life-changing stuff. And in terms of theories and mathematics and other things of that nature. I mean, he was a brilliant guy to begin with. However, it's interesting that he saw this connection between I don't know exactly how to phrase it, the physical and the metaphysical, the empirical and the metaphysical. He I think he sought to reconcile the two over his entire lifetime. And so he said some very profound things, and it's interesting, and that's the lesson to all of us, that there's more there than the eye can see, and what's interesting is what you focus on is what you get. And I come across people all the time who are having challenges, third-dimensional challenges, and I attempt to impart to them that a lot of what they're seeing is mirroring what they see in themselves. And when they think about that, I ask them a couple questions. A lot that is very, very true. It's sometimes challenging to accept. People don't want to accept the fact that they may be, that they're creating a reality for themselves that's based on fight and struggle, fear, worry, frustration, lower level, all those lower level hate or anger or something outside of themselves, that may be the reason why they're feeling the way they're feeling. And perception is the first place to start. Let's just get there. And I've never found an instance where someone's perception wasn't the driver of how they're feeling, their inner conversations, and their responses to what's going on. It's just, I've attempted many times to disconnect those, and they just don't disconnect. Because the minute you tell them something that's different than what and they absorb it, they feel differently. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing thing. I'm glad it's our topic today. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
I was just talking to. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and I'm glad that you brought up, Carol and Collins and the grid and everything else, because there's different moments in my day today. I had different, little speed bumps along the way. It was like I just sat there for a moment. I'm like, okay, let's shift this. And I went back to the always imperfect. There's my perception that, everything is always perfect. And, and I do see it impacting my grid. I do see it impacting my animals. Honestly, I find it really fascinating. I have my little 15-year-old dog had an accident last August, and it affected him cognitively and physically. And I just said to him, you're always so strong. You're just so perfect. And he is doing amazing. He's just going up the hill, and he's strong, and he's determined, and he's skinny little jackrabbit. I call him like a little jackrabbit, but he amazes me, and he wants to be here on this planet. And so, my perception of could have been, oh, this poor dog, is not doing well. But we just, stronger every day. And I applaud him for it, and I just continue to see him in that way.
Positive praise. Yeah, that sends off you're vibrating a frequency of positive praise, which is in love, and that is inspiring. Pets, we don't think about this, but pets are empathic anyway. They're super empaths, and he's picking up on the vibe you're putting out. Mommy is supporting me 110%, and that's all you can do, and then it's up to them. And evidently, this wonderful little creature has decided to is biting into it and moving forward, and believes in themselves that they can do it because you believe that they can do it. And if I look at relationships, and I'm always talking about relationships because they're how we learn. Relationships are how we are one of the best ways that we as human souls can evolve. We need relationships. And that's in my view, that's also, young people need to develop relationships, face-to-face relationships where they can learn about themselves, and they can see what their thoughts are bringing to them. They can experience that when they shift their thoughts about themselves, how their life changes, and how if everything outside of you is a mirror of what you're thinking is, you don't get that on social media. You don't get that from TikTok. You get a dopamine hit from somebody who you don't know and you never will know. In my view, one person looking you in the eye and giving you acknowledgement is so much more powerful than a million people giving you acknowledgement for something that you did that really doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of life. Because most of the stuff that is being put out there right now is kind of like 24-hour moments. It's valid for 24 hours, if that, and then it's gone, and there's no validity to it after that. No relevance. We are relevant people. We need need to know that we're moving in the right direction, in my view. And this is the concept of what's out there right now. And I'm kind of talking about this only because of the fact that I've been thinking about this because I was writing some of this for another podcast that I want to do on Life Moves. And that it's this never-ending drumbeat of noise and distraction, and that gets in the way, and drama, just in discord. It gets in the way of actually feeling the joy and the love we have for ourselves and the happiness that we have for life. It gets in the way. And we got so much stuff, and we feel that we need to judge it all. That our perceptions are in overdrive from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. And you can slow all that pace down. Just by simply letting a lot of it go. My own figure is 95%. 95% of what happens during your day has no relevance the next morning. And based on that, if you spend the effort on the 5% and you let the 95% go, life is going to change in a dramatic way. And the definition of whether it's relevant in 24 hours is very simple. Does it have to do with you personally? And a lot of what we ingest throughout the day has nothing to do with us. It has to do with a lot of other people. And those other people have their own lessons to learn. And they're experiencing a mirror of their own lives. And our media, expands upon, what other people experience as well. And so they extract the negative, and they give you the negative. And a lot of it has no relevance to us. We can survive just fine without knowing something about our next door neighbor, because really we all have our own challenges in life. And I just look at, at what we could do. And I told this to a woman on the plane yesterday. I was going to get my mother, and I said, and she was a wonderful, wonderful woman. I gave her a card to this podcast, and I hope she listens. But she was absolutely fabulous, and in what she did and what she told her people. She managed a group of people as a GM in the southern region, and she said, I like to give them positive encouragement every morning, and that's absolutely awesome.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's amazing. Yeah. And I said, can I make a suggestion? She says, yes. I said, get them focused on making their days amazing. We can all say have a great day. To me, that's a happenstance situation. I agree.
It's like giving somebody a bologna sandwich that's been wrapped in cellophane at the convenience store. Here, have a bologna sandwich. Have a nice day.
Yeah, that's really rather true. To me, have a nice day is I'm taking myself to a real nice restaurant and having a great meal, okay? Or I'm going to treat myself to anything but junk food. Junk food doesn't exist in my world. Processed food doesn't exist in my world. And that doesn't mean that I'm out there spending gobs of money on other stuff. It's just that I'll buy real food and I'll eat real food. That's all there is to it. Mm-hmm. And once you divest yourself of the need for that, of your taste buds and the salt, sugar, sweet thing, once you've divested yourself of that, you can live a completely different life. And that's what I thought about when I told you about this, the woman who I saw this morning who had lost 160 or something up pounds when in lockdown during COVID. And she evidently something shifted in her, that her perception of herself shifted and her perception of what she was capable of. We all have perceptions about what we're capable of. And we need to expand those perceptions. The word goes into every aspect of our life, every aspect of who we are and what we're capable of. And it has such power in terms of sovereignty. That you just can't get past it, right?
Yeah.
Happy about your dog. That's so sweet.
I wanted just to mention that, and sometimes on social media there are some things that really uplift and touch us. And you and I share things back and forth, Michael, and I didn't get a chance to share this with you yesterday, but there was a young man, and I thought about actually reaching out to him and see if he wants to join us on the show. He's from overseas. I'm not sure exactly where, maybe the UK, but he goes by Be Yourself Dylan with underscores between those. And he did a really sweet video about how much he likes himself and how much he loves himself. And he put it out there to the followers or whoever saw the video to please post below in the comments something that they loved about themselves. And I started reading them, and like the just his authenticity, and I thought about that with perception. You know, how is it that we perceive ourselves? What do we love about ourselves? One individual said that, and they were honest, that, you know, I want to be honest, I don't love myself, and you know that they had were disabled with brain damage, but they were trying to be better, just like you, because of you. And I thought to myself, how powerful a shift is that? Because of you. You inspired me to change my perception about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so we
Super
don't
powerful.
know.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, our society values perfection, which is problematic in its own right, because there is no perception. I mean, not perception, play on words there. There's no perfection. You know, there's nothing. Perfection is in the eye of the beholder, and that will always change. It is, you know, when we allude to, you're saying, you know, everything is always perfect. It's perfect for you in that moment in time, and it always will be, because that's the way you see it, as perfect. Even though perfect changes, it's always perfect. It's always great. And our society in putting having the motives, ulterior motives behind making people feel less than, in order to manipulate them to do something that may not be in their best interest. This is what we have, and we have to be sovereign beings and understand that we are in control of what we think, and we can be inspired by other people. I should say, basically, you can influence somebody else. You can't change them. You can't get them to change. However, you never know when what you say as an individual, anybody in this world, you never know how what you say is going to impact somebody else. So when you say it with love, compassion, empathy, and kindness, as long as you do that, you know that you're headed down the right path. And this gentleman, be yourself, Dylan. I'll send it to you, Michael. Yeah, Be Yourself, Dylan. He's putting out some very sincere, heartfelt material that is impacting other people. And he's asking people to reflect upon themselves, which is really, you know, quite brilliant. Because a lot of times people use social media to tell people what they should think, or tell people what they should do, or try to, you know, get people to be like me. And that's really not, in my view, it's much more empowering when you get people to be self-reflective and to ask themselves some questions. That's the power of change. Get people, they got to do their own heavy lifting. So all you need to do is to be kind, be loving. We're all one, and there's nothing wrong with you that you believe is wrong with you. Somebody told you it was wrong. There's something wrong with you because you had some sort of physical or mental situation. I was just telling my girlfriend the other day that everybody has special gifts, even people who are classified as being on the autistic spectrum or Down syndrome kids. I mean, you're a human being, and you have the ability. You have superpowers you don't even know about. You get superpower, and spend some time discovering that superpower. That's what should drive most people, discovering what that superpower is. It's unique to you. And it can drive you and take you places that you never, to miraculous places, to miracles. Like, was it Einstein that was saying that? Miracles?
Yes.
He said something about,
absolutely.
A quote about miracles. Beautiful quote,
Einstein's
by the way.
quote is, there are only two ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle.
Yeah, those two perceptions take you to two completely different places. I mean, it's like this is the power of perception again. Two different perceptions lead you off in two different directions. One's going to take you on this side of the universe, and the other one's going to take you on the other side of the universe. And it's if you find yourself going down a path that doesn't feel good to you, you have to examine the perceptions you have about what you're experiencing in life, about yourself and what's going on outside of you. Because it's just stuff in the end. The best thing I heard, what did Carol say? That this earthly plane is a learning environment. That's what it is. It's a learning environment. Perception for me that I embrace every single day is I'm living in a classroom designed to help me elevate myself, elevate my soul, elevate me to my soul's purpose, to be a classroom where I can practice being kind and loving and thankful and grateful and empathetic and compassionate. It is. Every opportunity is there before us on a daily basis to be non-judgmental, to have positive perceptions. This is a classroom that allows us to do that, to practice those things, and to practice being sovereigns. The stuff we see in reality is impacting someone. However, it's how we perceive it. We perceive what we're exposed to that generally goes a long way in creating our own reality, how we're feeling about ourselves and what we feel about the world we live in. And that's deep stuff. And you can sit around and think about it for, a long time and never come back to the same space. It's deep, very, very deep. However, if you embrace just a small hint of it, your life will change.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, just a hint of it. All right.
I know. And it's another miraculous conversation with you. It just unfolds, and I'm taking my little dandelion and the little wisps, and I'll blow them into the wind and let them be the elixir of life, and maybe they'll become Brazil nuts in the rainforest or something else. But whatever it is,
I love it.
Yeah, and thank you so much, and thank you for joining us here on Connect to Love on PRN-FM. We're so grateful, and looking forward to hearing all of your perceptions and what unfolds for you this week. And much love.
Yeah. Thank you. Great being here.